Happy Friday. Shalom, dear friends. Welcome to my channel. Thank you for joining me. This is Finding Shalom, and I am Krista. Today is Friday, and it's the day that we are sitting down together with the Word of God. You can do it on any day of the week. I just happen to post it on Fridays. But I'm glad you're here. So glad you're here. If you like this kind of content, please give me a like. Please subscribe if you haven't done that. And always please leave a comment. Whether you're saying something about the video or just a hello or anything like that, it does help the channel grow and get out to more people. So I appreciate all of you guys who are always in the comments. Plus, I think my favorite part about this channel is having conversations with you guys. That's what I long to do. I wish I could just sit and have long conversations in person with you, have our coffee or our tea, hang out. It'd be really nice to hang out in the garden if it was not winter. In fact, let me show you what it looks like outside our window right now. Let me grab the thing and turn it around. So this is outside my window right now, or outside my door. And in fact, there's a little squirrel. Hello. You looking for a peanut? Hi, sweetie pie. But yes, and it is really cold this week, and I'm really missing, oh, here comes another one. Oh, let me get you one. Just a sec. Okay. Just a sec. Okay, come here. Come here, sweetie pie. Oh, the noise. They're building a house over there. Come here. Come on, guys. Come get one. There you go. Come on, buddy. Come get one. Thank you. Good morning. But as you can see, it's really cold out there. And actually now that I let the cold air in, it's freezing in here too. A little bit more coffee, but join me today. I kind of wish we were all in person, kind of sitting around, hanging out in the garden, and it was spring, but that's okay. What we have now is inside and virtually. But thank you all for joining me every single week. Thank you for hanging out on my channel. Thank you for being my friends and encouraging me. And also thank you so much for reading the Bible with me and delving in, because like I said, I'm not a scholar. I don't know everything. Maybe some of you guys even know more than I do. But I just have this desire to just sit and hang out with you guys and talk about the Word. I want to talk about Jesus with people. And so I appreciate you coming. Today we are going to be talking about a passage that used to offend me and was not my happiest passage to go through. I used to think it was an attack on me. So we are talking about Mary and Martha. And as you guessed, I tended, especially in the olden days, to be quite a Martha and had a hard time with sitting down and being a Mary. So let's open up our Bibles to Luke 10, and we're going to go to 38 to 42. It's a quick little passage, but it is filled with so much meat. So let's do that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read out of the NIV. However, if you get a chance, read it out of the Message Bible. That was a really good translation of it. I just really enjoyed the more story kind of feel of it. And then I think I read it in the Living. And of course, I did some of the other ones like the King James and the ESV. So, but I'm reading right now out of the NIV. So in verse 38, Jesus visits Mary and Martha. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, they came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet, listening to what he said, but Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had been made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, and indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." So I think the reason that I always felt a little kind of put off by this, and we've all heard this 100 times, you need to be more like Mary, sit at Jesus's feet, which we're going to talk about that too. But the Marthas of the world kind of make things go. If you had a church and you had all Marys, nothing would be clean. The bathrooms would be filthy dirty. Nobody would have that great potluck dinner and have, the bulletin all put together and everything. And I often gave my time and my energies and my, ministry was kind of service in helping. And I felt like that's my gift to God. And then when he's saying, kind of scolding Martha and saying that Mary had the better, role, I was always like, that just doesn't make sense. I thought the church has been asking for people to help, to volunteer, to put the chairs away, to put the chairs up, to, clean the church, to help in the Sunday school class, all of those kind of things. And I don't think that now looking back, that's not what this is saying. Two words that actually stood out to me in this time reading it that didn't ever stand out before. And that is in verse 40. It says, "But Martha was distracted by all the preparations." Distracted. That is meaning that instead of, yes, I think that her role was very important. She was feeding people, but maybe she did too many details. I have a tendency to do that, do too many details, too many things, have way too much food left over in the end when I could have done something simple and just sat and hung out with people. So maybe that's, one of the things that he's talking about. But the word distracted, I think that goes beyond those who are the ones in the kitchen cooking and cleaning. And I think it goes beyond moms. This can be men, women. What are you distracted by? I think that's the key to this, is that she was allowing the busy work to distract her from the fact that Jesus was right there. And she didn't know it, but he wasn't going to be there very much longer. I can tell from their interactions with him. In fact, the next 2 weeks after this, we are going to stay with Mary, Martha, and Lazarus and their family and get to know them a little bit. And I think he knew them very well, and maybe it was familiar for him. As he was passing by, he would stop in their house to hang out with them and hang out with the people, in Bethany. So maybe it was familiar and she felt like, oh, he's here again. I just need to do all the work and get everything all ready for everybody to eat and all that kind of stuff. And maybe the first time that he sat at their house, maybe she listened to everything he had to say because it was all new and fresh. And maybe this time it's like, oh, it's Jesus. He's been here before. I just got to get back to busying. And I'm wondering if that's the thing. It's not that God doesn't really, he loves the people who are serving him and doing his work. But even his work, even in serving him, we can distract ourselves with the busy work and not actually spend time with him. And what Jesus, I think, is saying here, the other thing, let me go to the last verse, 42, when he says, "But few things are needed, or indeed only one." He says, "Mary has chosen what is better." He doesn't say best, and he doesn't say this was the only choice. He's just saying that she chose what is better at the moment. It's a priority thing. And he knows that his time is coming to a close. Mary and Martha don't know that his time is coming to a close. And it's those simple things like we have to choose every day between better and best, kind of a thing. Or this one's better. They're both good, but which one's better? And the same thing goes in our families, in our marriages. We could do a lot of good things, but at the moment, what is better or best for our family? What is better or best for our marriage? And the same thing goes with our walk with Jesus. Picking between good things, it's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's that having a relationship with Jesus is a relationship. It's a relationship. And having a relationship means hanging out and spending time. And I have another question I'd love for you guys to answer in the comments. How do you spend time with Jesus? Because everybody does it a little different. You can be spending time with Jesus while doing the dishes. I've done that many times where I put on some praise music, and while I was cleaning the house, I was actually in Jesus's presence, and not really paying attention to the work I was doing, just praising God. And we've had that chance. I've had that chance this week while we've been watching the revival at Asbury University. I've just had that playing in the background, and I'm not really paying attention to the housework I'm doing, the laundry I'm doing, the simple sewing where I just sew by hand. I was just praising and being in God's presence. So, Martha could have just done something, maybe a little bit simpler dinner, so that she had time to sit at Jesus's feet and learn from him. He wants us to learn from him. He wants us to sit in worship of him. He wants us to just sit in his presence in prayer. And that's how we talk to him. In prayer, a lot of people think of it as I'm just saying all the things to God, what I need, or gratitude, or whatever. Sometimes it's sitting in his presence. Prayer can be sitting in his presence while you're reading a passage and just saying, okay, speak to me through this. Tell me what you want me to see. Like this time, I ended up seeing the word distracted and the word better. And I've never seen that before. And just saying, okay, Holy Spirit, please, as I read these, please speak to me. And stopping and listening throughout the day, listening to whatever he's saying. One of my favorite places to be with Jesus, unfortunately, is in the garden. As you saw, it's a little hard to be in the garden. Right now, it's a little bit chilly, cold, icy, windy at times. And I just can't wait to get back in the garden because, believe it or not, pulling weeds is one of those things. It's a mindless chore, but I'm on my knees and I do my best praying and my best worshiping and my best, sometimes a lot of times I don't have any kind of music or anything on. I'm just pulling and talking to God while I'm pulling weeds. But sometimes I'll put my headphones on and get some worship music going. Sewing is another thing that when I'm sitting here and doing something that doesn't have to be measured out, I can't do it when I'm doing all the fine details of measuring things and getting everything right. But there are times when you have to just sit and sew beads on, or you have to just sit and do some hand sewing, or you're doing the longest straight stitch of your life through some of these hems. Those are the times I can let my mind go off into prayer. I can have it go off into other things too, but if I'm doing it right, when it goes off into other things, I end up a worried, stressed mess. But when I really concentrate on giving God praise and praying and talking to him, then he works so many amazing things. And the things I was thinking about this morning, when I asked the question, what am I distracted by? That's interesting because I used to sew I didn't have a TV in the sewing room. We didn't have phones back then that had everything. So sometimes I can now get distracted by my phone. I can even get distracted looking up videos for some of my research, which some of it is good, but there is a time when I have a TV up here that even that is so distracting. I don't hear God's voice anymore because I'm hearing everybody else's voices. So maybe this week, since I've now really honed in on that and feel like God's been showing me some of that, I need to say, okay, this coming week, what are the things that are distracting me from really being in his presence or really talking with him? And I need to purposely put some times that I just sit with him. Maybe I've been missing things. When you're not present, you can be missing something amazing. Speaking as a mom whose kids are all grown, and my daughter, I have not seen her since 2020 in person. Talk to her a lot on text, and we even do Zoom sometimes, but I have not got to give her a real hug and squeeze those little cheeks and give her a kiss since 2020. It was right as the lockdown was kind of breaking open. But God gave me a special gift there. She had just graduated with her master's in northern Idaho. She had like 6 months that they had no place to be before they started into their PhD, their doctorate and all of that kind of stuff. And they didn't even know where they were going to be. So they went to Grandma's house and hung out with her for, I think, a month or two. And then they were on their way. They were only supposed to stop in here for maybe a couple days. They were headed to a conference up in Washington. And we get the call as they're driving through Nevada. The conference has been shut down because of this COVID stuff, and we don't know where to go. And are you okay with us staying a little longer? I'm like, yeah, come on up, stay a little longer. She says, well, it'd be just until we go and speak at the Texas conference. And then she was at our house a couple more weeks, and then we find out that the Texas conference was closed. And I think she was here for at least a couple months, and it was a joy. It was like a gift. I had no idea when she stayed here with me that God was giving me such a big gift. He also shut down my bridal shop at the same time, and I was able to bring my work home, make phone calls from home, maybe run in and do some sewing. I did not have this sewing studio then. I would do my sewing at the shop. I'd run in the morning while they were sleeping in and do my sewing and stuff, and then I'd come back and I'd just sit on the patio with them. I'd chit chat, and little did I know that I would not see her again for at least 3 years in person. So my time was short with her, and I knew she was always traveling and stuff, but I didn't know how long it would be. The same thing is with Martha and Mary. They don't realize that this will be maybe a handful more times, just weeks or maybe a month or so, until Jesus dies on the cross. This is their last chance to hang out with him. And Martha is so busy, and with busy work, it's the enemy named busy, she's so busy trying to make it a good event and make sure everybody's fed and taken care of, that she forgot to just sit with Jesus. And I'll bet you after he passed away, there were some times she thought back and thought, I wish I would have sat with him a little longer. We don't know with our loved ones how long we have. And we also don't know how long we're going to be here on earth. Luckily, we are, when we die, we do get to go to heaven and just sit in his presence and be a Mary. I don't think he's going to have us doing dishes in heaven. But I'm sure there'll be dishes. I don't know. But anyway, I think the important thing is to abide and to dwell. I wanted to read a couple places in Psalms about dwelling. So to dwell in somebody's presence, to tabernacle is the Hebrew word for basically to tabernacle, to hang out with, to dwell with someone. And they actually have a Feast of Tabernacles. It's a Sukkot known today, or a feast, or the Feast of Booths, or the Festival of Booths or Tabernacles. It has a few different names, but it all means the same thing. It's basically when the Jewish people for 1 week just stop everything they're doing and they build a hut in their front yard, backyard, whatever, and they hang out in a tent and hang out with God and hang out with their neighbors and their families and just stop in the midst of it. And it's to remind them of when they went through the wilderness and how God tabernacled or dwelt among them and protected them and guided them and provided for them. And so dwell is an amazing word. You can also find it under abide, to abide, under his banner, under his protection, under his booth, under his tabernacle. And so where was I going with that? I do not know. But let me read you Psalms 27:4. And this is, I believe it's David. Yeah. 27:4 is, one thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. Can you say that about your life? Is the only thing you desire is to hang out with him, to tabernacle with him, dwell with him, abide with him? Or is the thing you desire is to have a purpose and get out there and work hard for him? That's important too. When he sends you somewhere, but dwell first with him, abide with him, and then he'll nudge you forward to do those things. I want to also go to Psalms 23:6, and we all know the 23rd Psalm, but this is the last verse in the 23rd Psalm. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Dwelling in his presence. It doesn't mean you have to necessarily go to church. God goes with us nowadays. So dwell with him. Sit in the morning and in his word and in his scriptures. Sit in prayer. Sit in worship. Whatever that is. If that's sitting in your house with a cup of coffee in the summer, if it's being in the garden, if it's doing crafts and having him creativity, art. That's all part of gifts that God has given us. Tell me in the comments what other things. There's so many ways that you can praise and worship God and love him. Going camping, I love to sit and look at his beautiful creation and get out into nature and smell the clean air and realize how good he is and how he made all of that. And then I wanted to go to Psalms 90:17. Because I think work is still important. We can't all just be, Mary. Mary's all fine and well if she's just hanging out and learning about Jesus. But then when Jesus leaves, is she also still working, or is she being lazy? Because that's what I want to know. That's what us Marthas want to know. Like, was she lazy all the time, or just right there? I'm just kidding. But really, I am still kind of a Martha. But I do love sitting in God's presence, and sometimes I find myself in more Mary mode. I know the last couple years that I was at the bridal shop, I just no longer wanted to be there. I had found fresh, exciting hunger for the Word of God. And I would, in the morning, quickly, I'd wake up early and I'd just be digging, and I'd just get to this nugget. And I'm like, shoot, I gotta go. I gotta go run a shop. I gotta get in early for this or that. And it frustrated me because I really, in that case, wanted to be a Mary, wanted to sit and learn all the things. And I was just getting some good nuggets. And now I gotta go do life and be a Martha. And it's hard being a Mary in a Martha world. And our world says, that you gotta be climbing that ladder of success. You've got to have the big house. You got to have the 2.5 kids. You got to have, what is all the little things that say that you have arrived? And Jesus says, forget about all that. That's not on my economy. That's not in my agenda. Sit with me. I'll tell you what I want you to do individually. Don't try to keep up with the Joneses. Here's the thing. When we were in our 20s, we owned a little house built in like the 1950s in a little neighborhood from the 1950s. We didn't have a lot of money to buy a home, and we were so proud of that little home, and we raised our little kids. And then when they got to be about junior high and we adopted another son, we only had one bathroom and everybody was crammed in. And so we decided we were going to bite the bullet, go out and buy a big house with acreage. We had a house, 6 bedrooms, 3 baths on an acre of land, surrounded by farms and also a conservancy in the back so that kids could ride their dirt bikes all back there. And for such a time as this, it was a great little house. But it was the new construction, what everybody was expecting. Well, when I had my business and the recession hit, and our kids were all grown, we had to make a decision. Either we keep the business or we keep the house. And the house was no longer important because I knew that I was doing what God created me to do in the business, and I was reaching a lot of people and helping some employees, and I don't know, my heart was there. And so we had to give up the house, and believe it or not, we moved in with my parents for quite a few years. That's hardship in your 40s to have to move back in with your parents and live in a basement. But after so many years, we got everything paid off and got out of the recession, got ourselves on track. Even with the business, I paid off all the debt of the business and everything. And then we bought a little 1958 house, ironically, in the exact same neighborhood. We now live pretty much across the street from where we started. If we would have kept that little house, it would have been paid off by now, and we would have been happy. And it was just for such a time as this that our kids were little and fighting over the bathroom and all of that kind of stuff. All that to say, I'm grateful for the time we had in the bigger house. I'm grateful for the adventures the kids got to have. But climbing that ladder of success is a lot of work, and it gets you into a bigger hole. Be satisfied with what you have, because eventually you might just want that little bit back. And so now we live in the same neighborhood with the same great neighbors that our kids grew up with. We can actually, from our front window, see our first house, which is now a rental, and very disappointing that it's kind of destroyed all our hard work. But anyways, now we have a tiny 1,000 square foot house. It's just enough. Little tiny backyard, just enough to be able to bring me some joy, just enough. Don't go out climbing ladders. Don't listen to the world that says you have to have this and you have to have that and you have to have a nicer car. If your car runs, that is amazing. If your house keeps you warm and dry and is a great place to welcome family and friends in or whatever, stick with the small. Don't be distracted by so much. And for those of us Marthas that really feel like, you know what, God's calling me to serve. Yes, just don't get tangled up with being distracted by the busyness or being distracted by, all the work. Do the work, glory to God, be in his presence, and then at one point stop, and you need to stop and be in his presence. Just sit with him. Just sit for a little bit. This verse in Psalms 90, verse 17, let me find it. It's the last verse. Is this also David? This is Moses. Okay, Moses actually, this is the oldest psalm. This makes it the oldest psalm. So 90 verse 17, may the favor of the Lord our God rest on us. Establish the work of our hands for us. Yes, establish the work of our hands. We can't get away from having to do dishes, having to do laundry, having to, do all of the stuff, go to work, to pay the bills, to put food on the table. We can't get away from that. We can't get away from also the fact that service is needed in the church. People need to be making those meals and helping the poor and doing all of that kind of stuff. But this says, establish the work of our hands for us. In other words, you say, I only have 24 hours in the day, and I need sleep, and I need to eat, and all of that kind of stuff. And I need to also schedule a time that I just sit with you. And Lord, if I sit with you and study, please establish the work of my hands. In fact, make it more productive than it would have been if I wouldn't have just sat with you. And make it more joyful. You'll be more joyful if you've sat in God's presence and then go out and establish the work. He establishes the work. You go out and do the work that he has called you to do. Do the little things like taking out the trash, but you'll skip in your step and you'll be more full of joy if you first sit and hang out with him and then let him establish the work of your hands. I hope that helped. I want to discuss that with you. Have you guys heard all of these things about Mary and Martha and all this kind of stuff, and all these churches putting down Martha? Come on. Martha is working her tail off. She needs some credit. But yeah, she needs to not be distracted. She needs to take a break and say, you know what? The kitchen dishes can wait. I need to sit at Jesus's feet. I need to hang out with my family and listen to them and talk with them and listen to Jesus and talk with him. I hope that helps. And I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, a wonderful Friday. I'll see you in the next video. Tomorrow night, Saturday night, we are actually going to see Jesus Revolution. We are super excited. So I'm hoping to give you a little bit of a review and tell you how it is, probably Sunday or Monday, something like that, at the beginning of the week. I'll try to pull something together. Maybe some of my friends will want to do a review on here with me. Everybody's so camera shy, but maybe I'll talk him into it. If nothing else, I'll drag my husband on here. He can't say no. Anyways, so also next week, we're going to talk about Lazarus. So John chapter 11 is our reading for all this coming up week. And on Friday, I'll be talking about Lazarus being raised from the dead. Try to say that 10 times fast. Anyways, have a great weekend, everybody. Love you guys. Shalom, dear friends.